We don't play for money. We're just playing for fun.
Well, good.
Mhm.
Okay, so I'm gonna start the interview, and today is Tuesday, April 23rd, 2019, and I have the honor today of interviewing. Now, do you go by Bob or Robert Cote?
Either one.
I have
But
the
most of my friends call me Bob.
So I have the honor of interviewing Bob Cody, and this is Nicole Morin Scribner doing the interview. And we are doing this at Bob's home in Old Orchard Beach. And to get started, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself and tell me when you were born and where you were born.
Well, I was born in 1930, which makes me double late now.
Mm-hmm.
And I was born in Biddeford and born at home.
At home.
My home. My mother chose to. My mother was a tough lady, and she chose to. And she had another son, a younger brother. I had a younger brother, and so she delivered at home, both of us.
Now, was it a doctor who came to the
Yeah,
home or a
the
midwife?
doctor came,
Do you know
Dr. La Rochelle.
Dr. La Rochelle?
Yeah, you know Dr. La Rochelle? No, he's passed away. He's elderly now, but he did smoke cigars and drove a big car around Biddeford, and his sons were professional men. One became a dentist in Biddeford, and so he was very well known.
Now you said your mom was a tough lady. Tell me about your mom.
Uh, my mother had a tough life, and she worked at the pepper manufacturing company, and she was a weaver, and probably she never took days off. She was a widow. My dad died young, uh, and she raised the two boys, and she was demanding, but yet very, very, very sweet, and very, how I would describe her. I wouldn't say she was I did say she was a tough lady, but she wasn't tough in any way. And so she brought us up and gave us a lot of freedom. And both my brother and I went to high school in Biddeford at St. Louis High School, and she was able to finance at least our high school.
Now you said she was a widow. How old was she when she was a widow?
Ooh, she was older than my dad, and my dad died at 37. She was 3 years older than my dad. She was born in 1903, and she died in 1962.
And how old were you when your dad died?
I was 13.
That must have been tough.
Yeah, and I had a younger brother, a year younger than I, and I can remember my mother, my mom coming to me to say, "You're going to be the man of the house now." And it shook me up at 13 years old, not knowing what was ahead for me.
Now, if you don't mind my asking, had he been sick for a while or was it accidental?
No, my dad had a surgery, gallbladder surgery, got infected, and they didn't have the antibiotics that they do today, and so he was in the hospital for a week. It looked like he was doing well, but then things turned around and infection took him.
That must have been devastating at that age, especially, well, at any age, but especially at that age.
Yeah, at any age, when you lose your parents at any age, it's not easy. And my mother worked. She didn't take days off. She went to work. She was one of their better workers too. And they used to work piecework, and she was able to hang on.
Now, I know what piecework is, but can you, I doubt that people in this generation know what it is. What's your understanding? Did she talk about what that was like working for piecework?
Yes. In fact, we visited her at work, see what it was like, and she would say, "Don't you dare go work there." And the humidity was so high, and the days were long, and sometimes she worked weekends. And then there were days during the 30s, I guess early 40s, when she only worked 4 days a week, and sometimes less because of the lack of work. But she seldom missed work, and but she took a lot of interest in what we were doing, so which is good. I was involved in athletics, and my mom didn't miss a game. She was there all the time. So I mean, it was encouraging to see her there at football games, basketball, baseball. And she was there. She supported us.
Now, did you have extended family that you
Yes.
were connected with too?
Yes. We were. There were 3 aunts living with us, and my grandparents in the house.
In the same house?
Yeah. There were 6 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and the reason that was so is because my dad worked through the Depression. My grandfather got laid off during the Depression, and they couldn't afford to even pay rent. So my grandfather and my aunts and my mother, it was a complete household. And I find this funny today, and I don't know if anyone would. There were 2 tables in the kitchen. And my grandmother had her table, and she cooked, and one of my aunts used to oversee us, and when my mother was at work, but we had dinner together, lunch together, and so the reason was, I know, is because my father was supporting the whole gang. He was paying the rent, but he died young, and fortunately, my mother was able to work and continue through there. But my grandfather, he joined he worked for the WPA for a while, and that saved us, saved him too. It saved his pride. He wasn't supporting his family, and it bothered him. I could see it, even being young. But he supported them, supported the family, and I don't think we were the only ones, but we get along with Grandpa, and my grandmother was a sweetheart. She would bake pies, and I can remember coming from a date and having a quart of milk and a whole pie.
quart of milk and a whole pie.
Yeah. Well, they would bake her and one of my aunts, who was never worked outside, but she did later on in life. Didn't work outside the home, but she was a baker. She was good, and she's great at food, and she was she was my godmother, and she was my godmother to my one of my sons too.
Now the WPA, those were projects.
Yeah, they were Roosevelt's project, who provided work for people who were looking for work.
Do you know what specific project?
Well, I know he worked on sidewalks. He built sidewalks in the town of Biddeford, and I think that's probably the one that my grandfather worked at. But he also later on worked for the parish, and he built the parish hall.
The St. Joseph's Parish Hall?
Yeah, yeah, we live right behind there, the house right behind, and we were there when they built it, and it was parish land, so that was our backyard. That's where we played. I was brought up on Cote Street. You know what that is?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, Cote Street, and there were kids all over the place. I still see people. In fact, when I go to church, I see Leo Leverrier. He was the youngest of the Leverrier boys, and he was there. And their fathers were barbers, two of them. He used to cut my hair.
So what was it like as a kid growing up on Cote Street?
Oh, it was great. We had a lot of friends, and my parents encouraged it. When we'd go, my father had a car, and we'd go out on Sundays to the lake, and we often brought some of our friends with us, you know, and so and then we'd be playing ball at St. Joseph, St. Louis schoolyard. We had, on South Street, we had our sleds, and we'd slide down the street. And they went to St. Joseph, same school we did. And so they were good friends, and we were able to enjoy ourselves, and our parents were very lenient and encouraging us to.
Did you speak French or English at that time, or both?
Well, we spoke both, but I think there was more French than English.
Even the kids playing out in the neighborhood?
Ah oui, on parlait français.
On parlait français.
Oui, des fois c'était pas trop beau, mais on parlait français. Ah ouais. De la Verrière, c'était nos amis, and they spoke French too. And the mothers didn't work, so my mother would, but her mother didn't work. But her father their father was a barber.
Now, do you know how your family came to be in Biddeford in the first place?
Well, my grandparents were born in Canada.
Do you know where?
It was Granby. Yep, and that's where they were, because they brought me there a couple of times, and they moved to Biddeford to work in the mills. My grandmother worked in the mills. My grandfather worked in the mills, and they raised their family here too, in Biddeford. And there were strong Catholics, and they wouldn't miss Sunday Mass. You know, they'd go to Mass. And we went to Catholic schools. Actually, I don't think I went to any other school but a Catholic school.
And it was St. Joseph.
It was called St. Joseph.
Yeah.
Right. We went there for 6th grades. And at the 7th grade, we went to the Brothers. And that was at St. Louis. So we were at St. Louis for 3 years, 7th and 8th graders, junior high, and then at high school for 4 years with the Brothers and the nuns.
Now, do you remember what it was like when you think about elementary school at St. Joseph? What was that like? What are your recollections of that?
Well, with the nuns, we had some tough nuns, but they were demanding, and which was good. In fact, you talked about Tuzbuta. He was in class with me, and he would go around the class with his guitar, he and his brothers, and they would sing. Class, and the nuns encouraged that too. And they would teach music. But I refused to study and learn music. I didn't want to learn music, how to read it. And I should have, because my dad was a musician. And he had a great voice. He sang it at church. He sang at City Theater in some of their plays. I can remember him playing Old Black Joe, and he played the baritone. And my brother had a beautiful voice. And I don't know what happened to me, but he had a really nice voice. And my brother started to take piano lessons, and my father encouraged it. My father went to school in Canada too. He went to Victoriaville, and he was born in Sanford, and and then my brother started to take piano lessons, and it's my fault. We discouraged him from playing because we needed another ball player, and he was practicing his piano, and we knock on the window, come out and play, and he eventually stopped his piano lessons. It was too bad. Yeah.
Now, when you went to school, was that in French or in English or half and half?
Half and half. Half in French and half in English. When we played outside, a lot of our friends spoke French, but as we got a little older, English became predominant. And so we would talk French at home. And my mother and my aunts would say, "Parlez français," try to. But once you start listening to radio and reading and playing out with friends, and some of our friends couldn't speak French, so English became the predominant language.
Now, is it in elementary school? You said that you were into athletics. When did you really did that start in elementary school?
Yes, and not elementary, but I'd say junior high. I started to play when I was 6 years, in the 6th grade. But we would play with a rubber ball when we were the early grades, but enjoyed that. I did. So,
So baseball came first?
yes, baseball came first. That's right. In the sixth grade, I played with the older kids, seventh and eighth graders. And we played against our opponents down the street, Saint Andre. We played a couple of games a year, and we played those Saco and Biddeford Junior High and so on.
So it was organized teams
yes.
connected to
we
the
had
schools?
uniforms and we go play. It was mostly seventh and eighth graders, but I remember one of the brothers who was coaching was looking for a catcher, and he saw me in the schoolyard, and he said, "Come over. You want to play baseball?" And I said, "Yeah, okay. You come over for practice." And there weren't too many I was the only sixth grader that played, but that's because he encouraged it, and he saw what I was doing in the schoolyard, and play.
And when did you start picking up the other sports?
The other sports, I picked it up in high school. I joined the Boy Scouts. They were Troop 308 there, and I became a scout. And we played there with the scouts and played basketball, and then you pick up the other sports. I love school, and I think it's because of the sports, the athletic things. But I really enjoyed going to school. We lived in walking distance to school. We'd come home for lunch. We had over an hour for lunch. And so school was fun.
Now, were the rivalries, from school to school? Did that exist when you were in high school as well?
In high school, oh yes, yeah. Thornton Academy was a rival. Biddeford was our rivals, and oh yes.
For all of the sports, or some more than others?
All the sports, all of them. Yeah. And sports were my life. Really. My father was a hockey player. Well, he went to Victoriaville. He graduated from a high school there in Victoriaville. And so when he came out here, he began to officiate hockey games.
There were some hockey games here in town?
Yes, there were some kind of semi-pro hockey games. And they played here in Westbrook Skating Rink, another Silver Skating Rink. And at 4 years old, I was on skates. My dad would take me to the games, and we were skating. Yeah.
Did that continue in terms of hockey as you grew older?
Yeah, there was no hockey in high school, none at all. Had there been, I'm sure I would have been playing hockey, but no, there was no, during the winter months they'd play basketball.
So tell me about when you were in high school. Is there any game in particular when you were playing in high school that really stands out?
Oh yes, there's some games where we played Biddeford and played Thornton Academy. Those were the rival games, and we'd win our shares of games, and then after the season, I'd play with some of the Biddeford kids, Thornton kids. We'd play in the other places. Yeah, the parish hall was next door to where I lived. And my grandfather had a key to the hall. I knew where it was. So I spent time in parish hall playing basketball, sometimes by myself, sometimes with some of my friends.
That was a nice thing to have.
Well, my grandfather had the key because the pastor, sometimes the lights were left on, and the pastor gave a key to my grandfather because we lived so near. So we were, my grandfather would put the lights out. The pastor or the priest didn't have to come over in the wintertime and unlock the doors or put the lights back on. So my grandfather had the key. He didn't know that I knew where it was. He probably did. He wasn't, he probably did, but I'd sneak in and go play.
Your friends must have been impressed that you had access to your own private basketball court.
If they came, I don't know if they were impressed, but sometimes they would come with me to play. We had a basket in our backyard too, so.
Now, because you mentioned when you were younger, the St. Joseph's kids would play St. Andre's.
Boy.
Now, did St. Andre's have a high school?
No, it was a junior high, 7th and 8th grade.
So then did they come, where did they go to high school, the St. Andre's kids?
Some went to Biddeford. Quite a few of them went to Biddeford. The better athletes went to Biddeford. They got talked into by the coach, you know. But some of them went to Biddeford. Biddeford had some real good teams. We beat them a few times, but they still were good teams. But there were a lot of French kids too. Cordeau, Cartier, the non-français.
Now, how tough was it for them to integrate, like when it was time to go to high school, if they were rivals up until that point?
Well, they were rivals. We were rivals in high school too. So some of them went into high school, and others stayed at St. Louis. I don't know if I'd have said I want to go to Biddeford if my parents would have allowed me to go to Biddeford. I don't think so.
Why do you think? Well, what were the feelings about that?
Oh, you want to go to Catholic school. You need to see the brothers. The brothers will take care of you. You know, you will be disciplined by the brother. Okay. We didn't have a choice. I don't know if I'd have said I want to go to Biddeford if they would have allowed me. My dad was gone by then, and there was no tuition at the high school, the Catholic school. No tuition at all. We sometimes had to rent books, but it was almost nothing.
Now, what were things like in the city, like on game night when St. Louis had to play Biddeford?
Oh, it was fine. Yeah, we got along good with the Biddeford kids. I know. After the season, we'd form a team, and sometimes we'd go play together against. One time we were playing in tournaments in Portland, Sanford, and Biddeford. You know, and we had to run. Sometimes we played 2 games in one night. Yeah.
Now, did you socialize together too? Did people from St. Louis date people from Biddeford?
Not that much. But normally we'd date Biddeford kids, but I don't think it happened a lot. But there's some. They intermarried later on, but high school, and I know I went to the Biddeford High School prom my senior year, but that's because the president of Biddeford High School class graduated, Junior LaFontaine. He invited me to go, so there was some intermingling.
What did teenagers do for fun when you were in high school around here?
Ah, I don't know if we'd go to movies. Movies was probably the predominant thing. We'd go to some of the restaurants, like have a Coke or something after the movies. There were dances, but there was a club at Biddeford. They had Saturday night dances for the kids. So that's what they did. That's what we did. I think going to movies was the predominant thing.
Now,
Or walking hand in hand with your sweetheart. That's it, you know.
did you go to the beach much?
Oh, in the summertime. In the summertime, we'd go to the beach. We'd take the bus and Echo. We'd go to Old Orchard Beach and go for a swim. More than a swim. We'd stay there for a good part of the day. Yeah. And we'd go with our parents too. My father had a car, but after he passed away, my mother sold it. She never drove. She didn't have a driver's license. And so I didn't have a car, and high school kids didn't have a car. We had, in our class, there was one guy who drove to school with a car, and he lived in Saco, and he came to Biddeford. And he just passed away this past week. He was living in Florida. He just passed away. His name was Norman Rock. And it's funny that comes up. He was a friend of mine too. He had a car, so.
I bet he was popular.
Oh yeah. He drove it to school, you know. He was an only child, and he lived in Saco, and he became my friend. I don't. Maybe the car had some attraction, but I'm sure there was something else, because he was a fine boy, and he could take us to the beach or to the movies, but that wasn't the reason.
I only mentioned that because I'm sure that was a novelty.
Oh yeah, one car. There was a few others ahead of us in school, in high school. They would go to school with a car, but those are the boys and girls. I think mostly boys. I don't think girls had car. Mostly the parents had a little bit of wealth, and so they were able to have a car.
I saw that you were the valedictorian of your class.
We
Must have worked hard to achieve that.
Well, I did my studies, you know. I spent time studying. I not only played athletics, I had to squeeze in. I always did the assignments I had to, and my mother saw to it anyway. But
Did you work when you were in high school?
only in the summer. I did not, during the high school, I did not work. And that's because my mother said, I don't want you to work. You mind your studies, you play sports. In the summertime, then we'll find a job for you. And so all through high school, I worked in the summertime while we were way out of school. And I turned my entire paycheck to my mother.
Where did you work?
I worked at a couple of years, I worked at the Biddeford box shop. It doesn't exist anymore. They made wooden boxes. And I also worked at the St. Louis alumni. I took care of the field one summer. My job was to take care of the athletic field. And as I got older, I went into college. I worked for the White Star Laundry on a truck. I collected the laundry at the beach and over, and I also worked for the largest bakery. But I was older then. I was married when I worked for Deloitte.
Now, at the high school, when you were in high school, were the boys and the girls together, or were they separate?
Yeah, we were separate, two different buildings. And then when they put them in a building, the same building, they added to the school that there were doors. No.
So were they in the building when you were in high
The
school?
senior year in high school, they were in the same building, but the doors were closed for the boys. And well, that's too bad.
Was there any peeking?
I'm sure. I'm sure it wasn't. We did.
So if it was your senior year when the girls came into the building,
Yeah.
do you remember what that was like?
It made very, very little difference.
Because they kept the doors closed.
Yeah, and they were not in the same class. You know.
Oh, they were in the building, but the classes were not co-ed.
No. They had their own classes. Yeah. They started to bring girls into the class with the boys when I was teaching at St. Louis. That's when they first raised them.
So when came time to graduate, when did?
Yeah, two separate graduations.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, the boys had their own graduation, the girls had their own graduations. I might not have been top of the class, if the girls were in school with us.
So when did you start thinking about the possibility of going to college?
And when I was in high school, I told my mother, I said, I'm going to college. And she said, I can't afford it. She said, I can't. I said, I know, Mom. I'm going to get a scholarship. I'm going to get a scholarship, and I'll be able to go to school in college. She said, good luck to you. One of my aunts said, I'll pay half the tuition, or I'll pay the whole tuition. And I said, okay. But she was thinking of $100 scholarship. When I got a scholarship and paid the whole thing, my aunt said I didn't mean to pay the whole thing. I said, it's okay. I've got it. It didn't cost me anything to go to college.
Now, how did you choose Boston College?
well, Boston College was well known, famous. I was recruited.
I wondered.
I was recruited. I was recruited at UNH, Bowdoin College, and then BC. So I visited the schools, and here again, here comes the Catholic influence. You know, the Jesuits, and so they said, "Come over here, and it won't cost you a penny. Books, tuition, meals, everything." I said, "Okay." My mother was happy. I said, "I told you, huh? I'd get a scholarship." And so there it was.
Must have been a big transition to go from Biddeford to Boston.
Yes, it was.
What was that like?
Well, I'll tell you this. When I went up there, the first, had I come home that weekend, I wouldn't have gone back. I wouldn't have gone back. But I said to him, I didn't talk to anyone about that. I said to myself, now I've got a good opportunity. Don't throw it away. Go back. So I went back. And I'm glad I did. But it was only 1 week. And I gone back. I know what would have happened.
It was very, very different from home.
Uh, it wasn't that different. The classes were not different. I think one advantage is I was playing football, and you make friends. You know, like the first week, you had to make some friends, and so that helps. So being in athletics helps make up my mind to stay. I know one case when I was in college. There was a good football player from Biddeford, and he went to his brother went to BC. He went to BC. He went for the 1 week. After 1 week, he came home on the weekend. He had a girlfriend. He came home for the weekend. He didn't come back. And the coach liked him. They thought he's going to be a good football player. They said, "Can you talk to him? Call him up on the phone and see if he's going to come." He never didn't come back. Too bad, but.
Had there been other Biddeford players that went to BC before you?
We were on the team when I was there. We were 3. One was a senior, but the other one was a sophomore. He didn't go right from high school. He went to prep school for a year, then he went to college. And he graduated from college.
Did you find the studies difficult?
No.
You felt well prepared?
Yeah.
And being Franco-American, did you feel like you fit in? Because
Nope.
there must have been people from...
Oh, a lot of Irishmen. Yeah, we fit in.
No issues.
Yeah, not for me anyway. You know, I guess it could have been if you let it happen, but no, there was je parlais français, and They never called me Frenchy, but there were other guys. There was a guy from Woonsocket there, and he was Frenchy. They called him Frenchy. It's a good mixture. We had the Jesuits. Some of them were mean. And there was one called Father O'Connor. God bless his soul. He come in this classroom one day. It was philosophy. He took his briefcase. He throws it on the desk. He said, "Yes, sir. This is Black Dan O'Connor, alias Dirty Dan. Now run to the registrar and get your class changed." That was his speed. Yeah. I said to myself, he's not going to scare me.
So football really was a big thing over there.
Well, it's a big thing, but yeah, I was on the team. We're a freshman team. They don't do that anymore. No freshman team. They all play the same. But when I was there, we had to play on the freshman team. So I played on the freshman team. And then my last 3 years, I played in the varsity with... in fact, my senior year, I won the Scholastic Athletic. Did you know that?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
That's quite an accomplishment.
You know who this guest speaker was?
Tell me.
JFK. He's a senator then. And there was a funny story about that. When he became president, I told my kid, I said, I met him. I know him. Oh, yeah, Dad, sure. You know him. Then the athletic director at NBC got a picture, and he sent the picture to my house. And I showed it to my kid. I said, see, I knew Kennedy.
That must have been especially meaningful.
Oh, yeah. I didn't expect that, but...
Was any of your family able to go to that banquet?
No, they didn't. They couldn't afford it.
Were you able to come home very often when you were...
Anytime I wanted to, you know. But we'd hitchhike. My first year, they would pay us to travel. Yeah.
To travel home?
Yeah. We'd go to a game. We'd go play someplace else. They'd give us spending money. But then they stopped that. The NCAA put a stop to that. Yeah, they would give me $5. $5 to me was a lot of money to go to the game. Oh yeah, French wasn't a big issue. There was one little episode between Father Black Dan and I, and there was a prom, and I was going up to the prom from a girl from Biddeford. She had a French name, so we had to write down the name of our date. And he looked at that, and he used to get after me. Cote, he called me Cote, and which is the proper pronunciation. And he said, "Why don't you take an Englishman? Why are you taking a Frenchman to dance?" I said, "She's as American as you, Father." And he let me get away with it because he was getting at me, and that's what he wanted. He wanted you to fight back. I was teaching logic, and you had to go. If you had to answer him, or else he'd murder you. You went to teach philosophy at the Regis College. He got fired. He failed too many girls. He was Black Dan, Dirty Dan O'Connor, and he was proud of that. He was proud of that.
Now, what did you study when you were in college?
I studied economics. My degree is BS in economics, and I went back a year after. I got a teaching fellowship at BC.
A teaching fellowship.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So we were talking about your college days. So
My college professors. Dirty Dan.
Dirty Dan. So as you when you went into college, what were you thinking what was your goal? What did you think you'd do once you
I was thinking of doing some mathematics, and possibly with going into some kind of engineering. But I didn't know really what I wanted to do. If they asked me at that time, what do you want to do? I would have said, I want to coach. I want to coach. I want to deal with young people. And that became a reality.
And now I think I read somewhere that not only were you recruited from high school to go to college, but where you were such an outstanding athlete in college, did you have an opportunity to do something with that as a career?
I coached with Mike Hollowback over there. He was the head coach when I was a senior at BC, and he got me on the staff the following year. And I could have stayed there and become an assistant coach and that's how you start, you know. And but I got married, and I had a child, and I said, I know what they go through, and I don't want that. And because Mickey was born when I was in graduate school at BC. And I was also coaching football. And I know that they had to go to work during the football season at 7 to 8 o'clock in the morning. They were there till 10 o'clock at night, and there's no time for family. I said, I want a family too. So I said, I'm going to do something else.
Now, where did you meet your wife?
What?
Where did you meet your wife?
In high school.
In high school.
Yeah. I met her in high school. Oh yeah. She's another Frenchman from Biddeford. She was a junior, and I was a freshman.
And did you continue dating when you were in college?
Yeah. Off and on, but mostly on. Yeah.
And after you got married, while you were still in college, did she move to Boston?
Well, she was going to, but she became pregnant, and she was working, and she had insurance, and if she moved to Boston, she might have been without. Although the football coach at BC offered her a job in his office, he had an insurance business, and he said, if your wife wants to work over here, but she was all set up there, and she stayed here. And so I used to travel. I worked I'd go to school, graduate school. I'd coach football, and travel on. And I had some night classes, and I would come home by train. Not every night. I'd come home Thursday night and go back Monday morning. And that's when Mickey was born. He was staying in Biddeford with his mother.
That must have been a full plate.
Yeah. Yeah, it was.
So how did you then end up back in Biddeford?
I came back in Biddeford, and they offered me a job at St. Louis, and they said, you want to work at St. Louis? I said, yeah. So I went to work at St. Louis as an assistant coach. I did that for 3 years, and then I was head coach for a long time.
Now, were you teaching as well?
Oh yeah.
The coaching was on
Oh yeah.
on the side.
I like teaching. I enjoy teaching.
What did you teach?
U.S. history and economics. And I introduced at St. Louis advanced placement U.S. history. And then when I went to Thornton, they didn't have it. So we got advanced placement U.S. history. And that's quite, they can get college credits by going through that. Did you do that?
When I was in school, they, well, of course, St. Louis closed.
Yeah.
And so I don't think I had that option. And then we were on the double sessions.
Yeah, oh yeah, it was too bad.
So we didn't have any.
This advanced placement is really, and now it's become even more so. You know, I mean, I put it in that, and I taught economics at Thornton too. You know who got me to do that?
Who?
Mickey. he went to the guidance counselor, and he's arranging a schedule, and he talked to Joe McCarthy. He said, well, I'd be interested in taking a course in economics. And he said, we don't have it. We don't have a teacher to teach it. Mickey said, yeah, you got one, my father. So I got stuck with another preparation because of that.
Now that was at Thornton, right?
Yeah, that was at Thornton. And he's the one who said, oh, yeah, you got one, so my father can teach economics. Okay.
So you must have seen a lot of changes in what it was like to teach high school through the years.
Yes, there was a big change from St. Louis to Thornton. Once I got to Thornton there, whoa, there was a difference in the attitudes of the kids.
Like, can you tell me more about that?
Yeah. Excuse me.
So you were saying that you felt that there was a big change in the attitude of the students at St. Louis versus Thornton?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, their attitude, their work ethic was a lot different. You know, you give an assignment and half the class does it. You know, this didn't happen at St. Louis. When you gave an assignment, everybody did it. But over there, especially I had a freshman class my first year. I was teaching civics, and boy, those kids, they weren't doing their assignments. They weren't doing anything. Well, by the end of the year, I had them doing some things, but it's either that or you're failing, you know. So you have to do the assignments. I would give the kids there one assignment a week, a written assignment, especially with those that have difficulty, and then you progress and start to give them expecting a little bit more from them. But yeah, I was amazed at their attitude.
Now, I remember one of the things that you said earlier, that you were teaching at St. Louis when they finally let the girls be part of the class.
Yeah, I thought some girls do.
Now, what led them to make the decision to finally make the change? Do you know?
I really don't know what. I think it's probably the teacher ratio, how many teachers they had was there. I can remember going into teaching an all-girls class at St. Louis, and they weren't mixed then. The principal was going to a convention in Atlantic City. She asked me to take the class, her history class. So that was an experience too.
What was it about that was an experience?
I walked into that classroom and they all stand up. Good morning, Mr. Cote. I mean, the boys never did that. You know, I mean, whoa. I said, you girls are very nice, you're polite, you're right there. And then sometimes I would lecture or give questions, and I want the answers fast. I'd ask them a question, and then they'd stand up. It took them a half an hour. I was wasting a lot of time in the class. I said, no, you don't have to stand up every time I question you. I ask you a question. You want to stand up and say something, you may, but don't do this. And then I would sit on the desk, put my feet dangling. I could see the reactions in their face. You know, the nuns don't do that. I mean, I was only there for 2 weeks there, but.
So was it well received when the girls became part of the class as well?
Oh yeah, a lot of the girls were happy to be in with the boys. I'm sure, yeah.
Were the teachers receptive to that?
Yeah. The brothers were too, but you know.
And were the boys happy about that?
Most of them. Some of them, I don't think they like the idea of having girls, but most of them were. Yeah. If I remember right.
And how much time did it take to prepare for the teaching part of your job versus coaching?
Yeah, it's about the same. Because I always told the kids that coaching is teaching. So if you're a coach, you're a teacher. You teach. And that's what you did in the classroom. You taught them. I mean, you teach. You teach techniques. You teach plays. You teach that they need to learn. So, yeah. I didn't find any much difference between teaching and coaching.
Were parents as actively involved in? Did you get much interference from parents?
Never. I never got parent interference well, maybe once or twice, but I can't say that parents, like I hear some coaches say, boy, the parents are always they're on my back, they call me all the time. I didn't get phone calls, I didn't get nothing. I handled them, I guess.
And you had a pretty decent record.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But I enjoyed it.
What stands out for you in terms of your accomplishments in high school coaching at St. Louis?
Well, for the most part, is the championships we won. I gotta say this, I was successful in all sports. I coached basketball 5 years, and we made the tournament 5 years. We got to play in the New England Catholic tournament. We played there when I was coaching. And in baseball, the only time St. Louis won the championship Telegram League, I was coaching. Didn't win a championship in basketball, but we did well in basketball too. No.
And then there was football.
Oh yeah, football, we got very successful there. Yeah.
That's an understatement.
Well, I don't know. The kids we had, you know, and so they played lots of sports too, and that's why we were successful in basketball and in baseball. You treat them well, and they will treat you too. And they will, you know.
Are there any special plays or strategies that you had that you...
Oh yeah, not too many, but we did something that hadn't been done around here for a while. We run back punts. When they kicked to us, we were able to. I had a play, and we would run back punts. The first game that I coached and we were playing at Sanford. I think we ran back 3 punts, and after that we ran punts all the time, and the other teams never did it to us. So that's comforting. I like that part. and I made a film out of it. I don't know where it is now, but I took from some of the different plays, and I spoke at a clinic and brought that to show. And the kids have all, the ones that are gone, they played in college, they borrowed that thing, so I don't know where it is. I've lost it.
Are there any games in particular at St. Louis that are real, stand out for you?
We beat Thornton 27-26 one year. That stands out, you know. I mean, you get close games, and they're good teams, and you're both undefeated, and sometimes Thornton beat us one year. We were undefeated, and they beat us. So that stands out. Sometimes good, and sometimes not.
I read something that I thought was interesting with regards to the players sharing the plays in French and the...
Oh yeah.
So tell me about that.
That's a story.
Tell me about that story.
We were playing at basketball at Thornton Academy. And Trape had a pretty good team, and so did we. The thing is, St. Louis never had height, although some years we did have Al Dago. You know Al Dago? Yeah. Well, we were playing at Trape, and the Trape was beating us at the beginning, the first quarter. And so I changed the defense, and we started to press them, get on top, press them. And the kids were conversing in French, talking to each other. I got him, you take him, so what they say, you know? And all of a sudden, we're ahead. We take the ball. And the official said, you can't do that. You cannot talk French. I said, why? He said, you're taking unfair advantage of this team. by speaking French. I said, no, we're not. I says, they come down here and they're talking with fingers, play number 2, 1, 3. I said, my kids don't understand that. You're taking an unfair advantage of us. Oh, no, no, no. They call technical fouls on us. Well, the official went to talk to Brother Damien, who's the athletic director. And Brother Damien was all insulted. He says, your kids can't speak French. He says, yeah, I mean English. They can all speak English. Is that what you heard?
I thought that was an interesting story.
Yeah. But there is a story, I'll tell you that.
Now, do you still stay in contact with any of your former people that you used to coach or teach?
Oh yeah, they come here. They've sat there, right here, there. You know, some of them, right there. Yeah.
And of course, it must have been. Tell me from your perspective what it was like in terms of St. Louis closing.
Were you there when they closed? You know who was talking? Who closed it? Me. I was in charge that day. Were you sitting in the audience?
At the parish hall?
Yeah. Yeah. I was the one that announced to the kids that school was closing. And you know why? Because the principal went to a convention in Atlantic City. And he said to me, he says, you want to take charge at the school while we're gone? They had never done that before. Yeah. I said, okay, I'll do it. And I said, they're not going to announce the closing of the school. Oh, no, that's not going to happen. He left. I got stuck with it. I wasn't happy with that.
That was
unfair. Unfair to the kids and unfair to me.
When did the faculty find out?
Some knew. That's when I found out. Although I had an idea that it was happening, it was going to happen. But that wasn't right. Especially when I asked him, and he said no. He had a letter in the safe from the bishop announcing the closing of the school.
What was it like after you made the announcement? Did people come back to you? What was that like for you?
A lot of the kids were crying. Girls were crying, especially. But no, they didn't blame me for that. You know, I think they understood that I wasn't to blame. But it's a principle. I mean, he knew. I don't know why he lied to me. You know, he could have just let it go and then make the announcement when he was there.
And then you had to make a difficult decision in terms of what you were going to do.
I knew. Thornton offered me the job. They had offered me the job twice before, 2 other times. And Lewiston had offered me a job too, over there. The kids know that because, you see, one time I was offered a job from Lewiston, and I was a good friend with the Lewiston coach and their faculty, and so they offered me the job, and I couldn't take it because Lewiston was on what they were like on strike, and the teachers You couldn't sign a contract, so I couldn't sign a contract with them. I was thinking of seriously of taking it because I had a family I wanted to take care of. And so we went to Lewiston to look at our houses, and I brought the kids with me. You know, so I said I was going to. They weren't too happy about changing schools either. They didn't like. My sons all came to Thornton. The girls went to Biddeford.
And the reason why, is there any reason in particular why that happened?
I told the boys I was going to Thornton, and I said, if you want to go to Thornton, you can, because I made that a stipulation in my contract that they could go there, all my kids, tuition free. And they did that at Thornton for me, and then they began to do it for other teachers because they had to. But the boys said, Mickey said right away, I want to go to Thornton, and he said, I want to play football for you. I mean, that's what he said. And John, my second one, he was an 8th grader, and he became a freshman. He would have been a freshman at Biddeford. And I think the reason he changed is because of the double sessions. You know, he decided that he said he was going to go to Thornton, and then the day we were leaving to go to Thornton, and I could tell something was wrong. I had breakfast with him, and he looked pitiful. I said, you don't want to go? He says, no, all my friends are at Biddeford. I said, I told you, if you want to go to Biddeford, you can. You know, I said, you came to Thornton and you got your whole schedule fixed out. I said, do me a favor, try it for 1 week. I said, you don't do much the first week, try it. And if you still don't like it, we could make the change, we'll go. After 1 week, he didn't say anything. He never came back and said, I want to go to Thornton. The luck was, I was going to Biddeford. John says, I'm not going to Biddeford. I'm going to live with my friend in Saco. he got in and he fit in and he liked it, so.
And obviously you adapted to,
Uh-huh.
and so you adapted to Thornton, even though it was a change.
Oh yeah, it was a change. But there wasn't a difficult change for me. The Thornton, you know. But some of the teaching was. And in football a little bit too. It took a little time to get those kids to do things the way I want them to, but it's all right.
Now, did you have a successful football season the first year you were at Thornton?
Well, we won more games than we lost, but not by many. You know, it took a little while to get it in. You were dealing with a different type of student. Oh, Thornton has a real lot of good kids too, but then they got a lot more bad kids too.
So when you look at your teaching and coaching career, how did it feel when you were selected to be in the Maine Sports Hall of Fame?
I was pleased with that. I mean, that's quite an honor.
Do you remember how you found out?
I don't.
Do you remember the ceremony itself?
Oh yeah, I remember the ceremony. Yeah. Yeah, they got my son-in-law taped the whole thing. Yeah, he's got it on tape.
Now, in terms of another honor, of course, one of the things that I came across was the very last yearbook for St. Louis.
Yeah.
And who was that very last yearbook at St. Louis dedicated to?
Yeah, to me.
Yes, it was dedicated to you.
Yeah. Oh, there's the picture of
And there's the picture
Kennedy.
of you when you received that award at Boston College, presented to you by then Senator John F. Kennedy.
Yeah, yeah. He was the guest speaker at that program.
Yes.
That was
So
at the Statler Hotel, and I had to rent a tux.
you had to rent a tux.
Yeah, look, got a tux and a bow tie. That's how it was, yeah. Yeah. And you know what I did with my yearbooks?
What?
My St. Louis yearbooks? While I was at St. Louis, I left them all at the Biddeford Library. They're all there. I think they were there. I brought them there.
Well, one of the things that I wanted to ask you is for your perspective on some major events that occurred, during your lifetime. So here we are talking about John F. Kennedy. What do you remember about when we all learned of his assassination?
Yeah. I remember pretty well, but did it affect me? Yeah, because I liked Kennedy, but my wife didn't. That lady over there, Rita, she didn't like Kennedy, and she would say, "You and your Kennedy." It's politics, but yeah, I was a little
Okay, so I think that we were talking about. Do you remember where you were when you found out about what happened to President Kennedy?
I'm trying to think there. I may have been in my car, so in the car radio, and coming home from school, right there. I think that's where I was.
Mm-hmm. Now, in terms of other events, I've heard, and I think you would have been in high school at the time, that there was a big fire in Biddeford in 1947.
Oh yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
Yes, you do.
Yes, I do. We were released from school, and we went out. But this is unbelievable. We had brooms to fight the fire in some places. And we stayed out, I stayed out of school for the rest of that week until it started to rain. And we ended up at Biddeford Pool, Fortune's Rock. It was all burning on the side of that island there. We ended up in Dayton, and some of these places. We ended up in Alfred, where the brothers are. The apple putting the fires out. We had a tank of water on our back and putting fire out there. We'd turn around and fire again. It was burning underground.
Now, you said something about brooms. What did you do with the brooms?
We fight the fire in the field. Bang, bang, bang. They brought us brooms. They released us from school. We went to the fire station, signed up, and an assignment, and we went out in the fields to fight the fire. And a couple of nights we spent overnight in the woods. Like at Alfred, we stayed there the whole night in the apple fields. They were fighting fire for the brothers.
That must have been scary.
No, it was an adventure. It was an adventure.
It must have been scary for your mother.
Yeah, probably. Probably.
Huh.
My mother and my aunts. No.
So I was going to ask, have you ever been tempted to move out of Biddeford?
I told you, I went to look in Lewiston. I went to look at, I did Saco. I was offered a job at Thornton. And where else? Oh, I was offered a job outside in Massachusetts. But, I hate to leave when you fit in. It feels good. It feels good to go to work in the morning. You know, it's not. You know, the only place to go at BC, and it was tempting, but then I knew what it involved, and I said, no, I want to be. I like to be a coach, but I also want to be a father. I want to be not only a teacher but a father. And I was well on my way of being a father at that time. But
Another interesting story that I read about you was a player coming to see you at the house to ask about some coaching thing, and you said, "Wait a minute, I need to change the diaper first."
that's probably coming from somebody else. Yeah.
So you weren't afraid to change diapers?
No. Hey, she had. We had 6 children, you know, and 4 of them came quite early. Between very little difference between them, and she was a great lady too, you know. It was tough losing her. And I lost her. I got married again, and I lost her again too. I had 2, and they were both St. Joseph graduates. Yeah.
Now, have you shared your love of sports with you? You did mention with your children, and you have grandchildren as well.
Oh yeah. I've got grandkids. I got a lot of grandkids. I got one coming now, pretty soon. I don't know if it's a boy or a girl, but yeah. Did you see the article in the paper about Bobby Cote? I'll show you that before you leave.
Bobby Cote, would he be?
You know the boy that called me just now, Chuck. Well, he called me when his son was born. He's got 2 sons, and he called me. That was the older one, and he said, "We're going to call him after you." He said, "It's about time somebody calls one after you." You know? So they called him Bobby, and he didn't play football. He started, but he got banged, and but he played basketball. He played baseball. He was the scoring champ in York County in basketball. He was the second in his class at Biddeford. And he went to Orono, and he studied engineering, chemical engineering. Yeah, and he's working out of the Navy Yard, and now he's in California for working for the Navy Yard. And he's chemical engineering.
That's a lot to be proud of.
Yeah.
That warms the heart.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
So I would ask, is there something what is something that people might be surprised to find out about living in the Biddeford area?
Surprise?
Mm-hmm.
What could they be surprised? I can't put a finger on it.
That's okay.
I can't put a finger on it.
Let me ask you this. What is something you'd want people to make sure that they take away from hearing your story?
From hearing my story? I don't know. It may trouble some of them. I don't. I don't know what to say there. I'm happy with what I did. I'm happy with my life. But that's my life.
And is there anything else you'd like to share that maybe I didn't ask?
You asked pretty much a lot of questions. The big thing is maybe we could have dealt more with my family, my grandfather, my grandmother.
I'd love to hear more about your grandfather and your grandmother.
And my aunts. I was living with 3 aunts. They spoiled me. You know, my grandmother spoiled me. You know, she was the sweetest lady ever. And if there was something at my table with my mother and my aunt that I didn't like, she would offer what she made. You know, and she'd go to mass every morning, 6:30 mass in the morning. And my grandfather one time, my grandfather belonged to, and my grandmother too, CLAA. You know what that is?
No, I don't.
Well, I'll tell you what I said about it. But it's Sec la Côte d'Air, Association Anti-Alcoolique. You had a blue button, you put it on. You know? My grandfather did not belong to that at first. And I used to say, CLAA can't leave alcohol alone. But he worked at the mill. He made his own home brew. He drank too much. He gambled, and he had a big family. But he had a good heart. One day, I guess he decided he was going to join the Blue Button. And he didn't have any money. He had to go to Fall River to see the priest. And this is my mother told me this. And he said to his wife, I want to go, I want to start drinking and gambling. I'm going to go to there. And my mother said to her mother, said, don't give him the money. He's going to drink it. Don't give him the money. He's going to drink it. Well, he went there, and he came back, and he never touched a drink after. Never. And he wanted my brother and I to join. My brother joined. I didn't. And I said, Pepe, what if I want to drink someday? What if I want to have a drink? Yeah, but you can't. You're gonna. He was really after me to go, and I refused to join. I never did. My father belonged. My grandfather did, but he never drank after that. Can't leave alcohol alone. That's what it says, CLAA on the blue button. And, that touched me when my grandfather stopped drinking and did that. But I refused to be pushed into it. My brother went. There's another thing. I told you about my brother singing, huh? My brother died young. You know that? He's diabetic. At 12 years old, they discovered he was diabetic. He didn't die at 12. He died at 28 years old.
That's still very young.
Oh, yeah. 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 He was my best man at the wedding, my first one. First wife. But it was tough for him. I'd go into the Puritan one day and he's sitting there and have a big ice cream sundae with chocolate sauce and the whole bit. And I want to say to him, don't. And he knew it. It was, his friends were doing it and he was eating too. It's too bad. And he wanted to play sports too and he couldn't. That was difficult for him. You know?
Did he end up going to school or college?
He didn't go to college. He went to high school. He graduated from high school. And then he didn't go to college. He bought me my college ring.
That must have been meaningful.
I still have it.
Mm.
You know.
Sounds like you've been surrounded by a very loving family.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And my grandfather was. Here comes my second son, John. He came over and did something.
Keys in it, Dad?
Okay,
What?
we're going to stop there.
Keys in the car?
No, I didn't try it.
Are the keys in it?
What?